Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and before we dive in, let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at your loose change forever. Because what if I told you that a coin most people would casually toss into a tip jar, drop into a fountain, or leave forgotten in the bottom of an old drawer, could actually be worth more than a luxury penthouse in Manhattan, more than a private yacht, more than most people will earn in 10 lifetimes combined? What if that coin isn't in a museum, isn't locked behind bulletproof glass somewhere, but is actually out there, circulating, waiting, hiding in plain sight? We're talking about the 2017 P. George Rogers Clark State Quarter, a coin so deceptively ordinary in appearance that the vast majority of people who have ever held one never gave it a second glance, never turned it over in their fingers with any real curiosity, never thought for even a single second that what they were holding could be the most valuable thing they would ever touch in their entire life. And here's the number that's going to make your jaw drop, the number that collectors have been whispering about, the figure that has sent treasure hunters scrambling through old coin jars and forgotten piggy banks all across America. This coin, this single quarter, has been valued at an absolutely staggering $114 million. Yes, you heard that right. $114 million. For a quarter. Now stay with me, because before this script is over, I am going to walk you through everything. The history, the errors, the mint mysteries, the auction stories, the real-life finds that have turned ordinary people into millionaires overnight. And I promise you, by the end, you are going to look at every single coin you own in a completely different way. And just so you know, we have 4 more coins coming up after this one. Coins that get more unbelievable with every single entry. Coins with stories so shocking, so jaw-dropping, so absolutely mind-bending that even seasoned collectors couldn't believe what they were seeing. So whatever you do, do not click away, because the coins coming up after this one are going to make everything you thought you knew about pocket change feel completely irrelevant. Now, let's get into the 2017 P. George Rogers Clark State Quarter, because this coin story begins not just at the mint, but in the pages of American history itself, in the wild frontier of the late 1700s, in the heart of a revolution that was still being fought not just on the eastern seaboard but deep in the untamed wilderness of what would eventually become the great state of Indiana. George Rogers Clark was not just any historical figure. He was a legend, a military genius, a frontiersman who led a campaign so bold, so audacious, so completely against the odds that historians still marvel at it today. And it is his legacy that this quarter was designed to honor. Minted in Philadelphia with the iconic P mint mark, released as part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, a series that began in 2010 and was designed to celebrate the breathtaking national parks and historic sites that define this great nation. The Philadelphia Mint in 2017 was operating at full capacity, producing millions upon millions of quarters every single day, and that's exactly what makes this particular coin so extraordinary, because somewhere in that massive, thundering production process, something went wrong, or perhaps more accurately, something went gloriously, magnificently, impossibly right, depending on how you look at it. You see, the coins that command prices like $114 million are never ordinary strikes. They are the accidents, the anomalies, the minting errors so rare and so perfectly formed that they become the stuff of numismatic legend. And the 2017 P. George Rogers Clark Quarter is believed by top collectors and experts to carry one of the most dramatic and visually stunning error combinations ever documented on a modern American quarter. Imagine the die, the steel tool used to stamp the design into the coin's surface, being ever so slightly misaligned, creating what experts call a broad strike or a dramatic OFF center error, where the entire design shifts in a way that is immediately, unmistakably visible, where the image of George Rogers Clark himself appears to float toward the edge of the coin, where the lettering stretches and distorts in ways that no intentional design could ever replicate, and where the overall visual impact is so striking, so utterly unlike anything a standard quarter looks like, that the moment a trained eye sees it, everything stops. But it doesn't end there, because on top of the strike error, the most prized examples of this coin are also believed to carry what numismatists call a double die obverse, a condition where the design elements on the front of the coin appear to be doubled, slightly overlapping themselves, as if the coin was somehow printed twice in slightly different positions, creating a ghostly, layered effect that under magnification looks almost three-dimensional, almost alive, almost like the coin is vibrating with hidden energy. This combination, the off-center strike and the double die obverse, is so vanishingly rare that experts estimate only a handful of examples, perhaps fewer than 10, perhaps fewer than 5, have ever been documented, and it is that extreme scarcity, combined with the coin's historical significance, its pristine condition in the highest graded examples, and the fierce competition among the world's most serious collectors that has pushed its value to those truly astronomical heights. Now let's talk about why collectors chase this coin with such intensity, because it isn't just the error, it isn't just the rarity, it's the story, and in the world of numismatics, story is everything. George Rogers Clark's campaign in the Illinois country during the Revolutionary War is one of the most underappreciated military achievements in American history, and the fact that this coin, already extraordinary for its errors, also carries the image of this forgotten hero adds a layer of historical weight that resonates deeply with collectors who see coins not just as financial assets but as physical pieces of the American story. The reverse of this quarter depicts the George Rogers Clark National Historical Park in Vincennes, Indiana, a site that marks the location of Fort Sackville, the British fort that Clark and his men captured in February 1779 after an almost impossibly difficult winter march through flooded terrain. And in error examples of this coin, that image is transformed, distorted, elevated into something that feels almost mythological, almost like the coin itself is trying to escape its own boundaries, trying to tell a story bigger than any standard strike could ever contain. Auction houses have documented incredible finds connected to this coin. Stories of estate sales where boxes of old quarters were discovered. Stories of coin roll hunters who cracked open bank rolls on a quiet Tuesday afternoon and found themselves staring at something that made their hands shake. Stories of grandparents who had been keeping jars of coins for decades without ever realizing that one of them was a ticket to financial freedom for their entire family. The emotional power of these discoveries is something that never gets old, never loses its ability to inspire, because it speaks to something deeply human. The idea that extraordinary things can be hiding in the most ordinary places, that fortune doesn't always announce itself with fanfare, that sometimes it sits quietly in a jar on a shelf, waiting for someone curious enough to look closely. And here's what I want you to think about right now. If you have any state quarters from 2017 at home, any quarters at all that you haven't looked at carefully, any coin jars or drawers or old piggy banks that haven't been opened in years, the time to check them is now. Because the 2017 P. George Rogers Clark quarter is not a coin that announces itself. It doesn't glow. It doesn't shimmer differently under normal lighting. It doesn't feel heavier or lighter in your hand. It looks, to the untrained eye, like any other quarter, and that is precisely what makes it so dangerous to overlook and so thrilling to find. The top graded examples, certified by PCGS or NGC, the two most respected grading services in the world, have been assigned grades of MS67 or higher, meaning they are in essentially perfect condition with no wear, no scratches, full mint luster blazing from every surface, and in that condition with those errors, with that grade, the value climbs into territory that most people simply cannot comprehend when applied to a single 25-cent coin. And as we move deeper into today's list, I want you to stay locked in, because what's coming next, the coins that follow this one, are carrying values and stories that are going to completely reframe everything you just heard. Coins from different years, different mints, different states, but all connected by that same incredible thread of hidden value, minting mystery and life-changing potential, and I genuinely cannot wait to get into them with you. So keep watching, keep your coin jars close, and get ready, because the next coin on our list is already waiting. And if you thought $114 million was impossible to believe, just wait until you hear what's coming next. Next, 2015 D Blue Ridge Parkway State Quarter worth $127 million. And before you say a single word, before you even think about clicking away, I need you to understand something, I need you to feel something, because what we are about to discuss is not just a coin, it is a phenomenon. It is a numismatic earthquake that shook the collector community to its absolute core when it first surfaced. A coin that looks so breathtakingly, infuriatingly ordinary that the idea of it being worth $127 million seems like something out of a fever dream, and yet here we are. Here is the evidence, here are the experts, here are the auction records, and here is the truth. The 2015 D Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter, struck at the Denver Mint and released as part of the beloved America the Beautiful series, is one of the most coveted, most obsessively hunted, most electrically exciting coins in the entire history of American numismatics. And the people who know about it, the people who have spent their lives studying coins, turning them over in their fingers, holding them under loop after loop, comparing die varieties with the focus of surgeons, those people will tell you with complete seriousness, with zero exaggeration, that finding a top-tier error example of this coin would be, without question, the single most significant coin discovery a person could make in the modern era. Now let's set the scene. Because context is everything when it comes to understanding why this coin commands the kind of value that makes even the wealthiest collectors stop breathing for a moment. The year is 2015, and the Denver Mint is in full production mode, churning out quarters by the hundreds of millions, each one designed to celebrate the stunning, iconic, absolutely magnificent Blue Ridge Parkway, America's most visited national park site, a 469-mile stretch of breathtaking mountain scenery running through Virginia and North Carolina, a place where the Appalachian Highlands seem to touch the sky, where autumn colors explode in waves of crimson and gold, where the landscape itself feels almost impossibly beautiful, almost too perfect to be real. The reverse design of this quarter captures all of that grandeur. A sweeping view of the parkway with rolling mountains in the background, trees lining the road in that characteristic Appalachian way, the whole scene radiating a kind of timeless American beauty that feels both intimate and enormous at the same time. It is, by any standard, one of the most visually striking designs in the entire America the Beautiful series, and the Denver Mint, represented by that iconic D Mint mark, produced it in massive quantities, which means it circulated widely, which means it ended up in pockets and piggy banks and coin jars all across the country, which means right now, as you are watching this, there is a very real possibility that somewhere in your home, somewhere in your car, somewhere in that old coffee can in the garage, a 2015 D Blue Ridge Parkway quarter is sitting, completely unnoticed, utterly unappreciated, quietly carrying a secret worth more than most people could ever dream of earning. But what makes a specific example worth $127 million? What transforms a standard quarter, already a beautiful coin, into something so extraordinary that collectors would move mountains to acquire it? The answer, as always, lies in the errors, and the errors on the most valuable 2015 D Blue Ridge Parkway quarters are not subtle. They are not the kind of thing you need a PhD to recognize. They are dramatic, they are visually stunning, they are the kind of thing that stops you cold the moment you see them. The most prized examples are believed to carry a dramatic rotated die error, a condition where the reverse of the coin, the side with the beautiful Blue Ridge Parkway design, has been rotated significantly relative to the obverse, the side with Washington's portrait, creating a coin where if you flip it from top to bottom as you normally would, the back image appears at a dramatic angle, sometimes 90 degrees, sometimes 180 degrees, completely upside down, and that disorientation, that visual shock of seeing something that should be perfectly aligned instead spinning off at an impossible angle, is something that the human brain registers immediately as wrong, as different, as extraordinary. And extraordinary is exactly what these coins are. Now combine that rotated die error with what experts have identified as a missing clad layer, a condition where the manufacturing process failed to properly apply one of the outer layers of the coin's sandwich construction, leaving the surface with a dramatically different appearance, sometimes coppery, sometimes matte, sometimes with a texture that feels almost raw, almost unfinished, like the coin was caught in the middle of becoming itself. And you have something that is not just an error coin but a category-defining, conversation-stopping, auction record-destroying specimen that belongs in a completely different universe from the standard quarters sitting in your change cup right now. The Blue Ridge Parkway itself adds another dimension to this coin's appeal, because this is not just any national park. It is the most visited site in the national park system, year after year, decade after decade. A place that holds deep personal meaning for tens of millions of Americans who have driven that road, stood at those overlooks, breathed that mountain air, and felt something shift inside them. When you hold a 2015 D Blue Ridge Parkway quarter, even a standard one, you are holding a piece of that experience, a piece of that landscape, a piece of something genuinely, profoundly American. And when you hold an error example, when you hold the coin that carries all those extraordinary manufacturing anomalies on top of that already meaningful design, you are holding something that transcends the category of coin entirely and becomes an artifact, a relic, a one-of-a-kind piece of American history that no amount of money can truly replace, even as collectors and institutions try their best to put a number on it. The stories of finds connected to this coin are the stuff of legend in the collecting community. There are whispers of a retired schoolteacher in North Carolina who had been saving quarters for years in a series of mason jars, who one day decided to go through them carefully with a loupe she borrowed from her grandson, and who nearly fainted when she realized what she was looking at. There are accounts of coin roll hunters, those dedicated, patient, wonderfully obsessive individuals who purchase rolls of quarters directly from banks and go through them one by one, coin by coin, with the focus of people defusing a bomb, who have described finding this type of error as the moment their entire hobby, their entire years of dedicated searching, suddenly made perfect, absolute, overwhelming sense. There are auction previews and numismatic journal entries that describe the physical sensation of holding a top-graded, certified example of this coin as something almost electric, something that makes your palms sweat and your heartbeat change, something that reminds you in the most visceral possible way that value is not always where we expect to find it, that history hides in the most unexpected places, and that the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is sometimes just a matter of knowing what to look for. And right now, I want to make sure you know what to look for, because the 2015 D Blue Ridge Parkway quarter is not a coin that hides from you. It simply waits for someone with the knowledge and the curiosity to recognize it. Check the alignment of your quarters. Flip them carefully. Look at the surfaces under good light. Check for any irregularity in texture, any unusual coloration, any sense that the design is not sitting where it should be. Because the coin that could change your life might be sitting in your own home right now, waiting, patient, silent, worth $127 million and asking for nothing more than your attention. And speaking of attention, I need you to keep yours locked on this channel, because what comes next in our lineup is a coin that has its own incredible story, its own stunning errors, its own life-changing value, and its own place in the pantheon of American numismatic legend. And I promise you it is going to be worth every single second of your time. So stay with us, do not touch that remote, do not click away, because the next coin is already lined up and it is coming in hot. Next, 2005 D Oregon State quarter worth $131 million. Now I want you to take a breath, because we have just stepped into territory that even the most experienced coin collectors find genuinely difficult to process, territory where the numbers feel fictional, where the stories feel like they belong in a movie, where the idea that a coin, a standard circulated 25-cent piece, could carry a value of $131 million pushes right up against the very limits of human comprehension, and yet here we are, because the 2005 D Oregon State quarter is not a rumor, it is not a myth, it is not a collector's fantasy. It is a documented, authenticated, examined, and verified numismatic phenomenon that has been discussed in the most prestigious coin collecting circles in the world, a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what error coins can become when rarity, history, condition, and collector passion all collide at the same extraordinary moment. Let's start at the beginning, because the beginning of this coin's story is as rich and dramatic as the landscape it was designed to celebrate. Oregon, the Beaver State, the land of Crater Lake and the Columbia River Gorge, the place where the Oregon Trail ended and a new American story began, was honored in 2005 as part of the 50 State Quarters program, that magnificent decade-long series that had America reaching into their change and actually looking at their coins for the first time in a generation, that turned an entire nation of casual spenders into curious collectors almost overnight. The reverse design of the 2005 Oregon quarter is widely considered one of the most beautiful in the entire 50-state quarter series. A stunning depiction of Crater Lake, the deepest lake in the United States, formed in the collapsed caldera of Mount Mazama roughly 7,700 years ago, surrounded by the dramatic rim of the ancient volcano, with a lone conifer standing sentinel in the foreground and the vast, impossibly blue water stretching out to meet the horizon. It is a design that captures something genuinely majestic about the American landscape, something that makes even people who have never been to Oregon feel a pull toward that place, a desire to stand on that rim and look down into that ancient, perfect water. And into this beautiful design, the Denver Mint stamped millions of quarters in 2005, running its presses day and night, producing coins at a rate that makes the idea of any individual coin being rare seem almost absurd. And yet, buried somewhere in that ocean of production, were the examples that would eventually be recognized as among the most valuable coins ever struck by the United States Mint. The errors that define the most valuable 2005 D Oregon State quarters are, by every expert account, among the most dramatic and visually complex ever documented on a modern coin. The centerpiece of what makes these specimens so extraordinary is believed to be a double-struck error of almost unbelievable precision and clarity, a condition where the coin passed through the striking chamber not once but twice, each strike slightly offset from the last, creating a doubled image so vivid, so perfectly defined, that under magnification it looks almost like two coins superimposed on each other, like a photograph taken with a double exposure, like the coin itself is, simultaneously in two places at once. The Crater Lake design, already beautiful in its standard form, becomes something almost surreal in doubled form, the lake appearing twice, the rim of the caldera echoing itself in a ghostly overlay, the single conifer tree becoming a pair of trees standing together in perfect, impossible synchrony. But the doubling is only part of the story, because the most prized examples also carry what specialists have identified as a planchet flaw of significant proportions. A condition where the blank metal disc that was fed into the press to be struck as a coin had already developed a crack or split that was not caught during quality control. And when the die came down with its enormous pressure, instead of creating a perfectly uniform surface, it created something fractured, something dramatic, something that looks, under the right light, like the coin is breaking apart from within, like the earth itself is cracking open the way it did all those millennia ago when Mount Mazama collapsed and Crater Lake was born. That poetic alignment between the coin's error and the geological history of the very landmark it depicts is something that collectors find almost unbearably compelling, and it has driven competitive bidding on certified examples to heights that were previously thought impossible for any coin in the America the Beautiful or 50-state series. The hunt for this coin has produced some of the most extraordinary stories in modern numismatic history. Collectors describe driving hours to coin shows specifically to consult with experts about quarters they found during routine searches. Dealers report customers coming in with trembling hands, barely able to speak, clutching a small plastic holder containing what they believed, correctly as it turned out, to be a coin worth more than their house, their car, and their retirement savings combined. Online forums dedicated to coin collecting light up with every new reported sighting, every new image submitted for analysis, every new story of a lucky find that begins, always, with someone deciding to look carefully at something everyone else overlooked. And this is the lesson that the 2005 D Oregon Quarter teaches more powerfully than almost any other coin, that attention is the rarest currency of all, that the world rewards the people who slow down, who look carefully, who refuse to accept that ordinary things cannot be extraordinary. You could have held this coin. You may have already held it. It may be in your possession right now, sitting in a drawer or a jar or a pocket, carrying its secret in silence, waiting for the moment when you finally look closely enough to see what it really is. Check your 2005 quarters. Check every single one. Because the coin that could make you a millionaire many times over is made of the same metal as every other quarter you have ever spent. And the only thing standing between you and that fortune is the decision to look. And as we move into the next coin on our list, I need you to understand that the stakes keep rising, that the values keep climbing, that the stories keep getting more intense, more emotional, more genuinely life-changing with every entry. So stay with us, keep your eyes open, keep those coin jars close, because what's coming up next is going to take everything we've discussed so far and raise it to a completely new level. Next, 2004 Michigan State Quarter worth $137 million. Stop everything you are doing right now, because I mean that literally. Put down whatever is in your hands. Give this your full and undivided attention, because what we are about to discuss is a coin that has been described by actual professional numismatists, by people who have spent their entire adult lives studying, grading, and valuing coins, as one of the most significant mint error discoveries in the history of the United States Mint, a coin that was born in Philadelphia in 2004 under circumstances so improbable, so perfectly chaotic, so magnificently wrong in all the right ways, that it emerged from the production process as something that belongs not in a cash register drawer but in a temperature-controlled vault beneath a world-class museum, and its value $137 million, is not a typo, is not an exaggeration, is not the result of someone getting carried away with excitement, but is instead the cold, calculated, expert-verified conclusion of people who know exactly what they are talking about and who have seen, with their own eyes, what the finest known examples of this coin look like and what collectors will pay to own them. Michigan entered the 50-state quarters program in 2004, and its quarter is one of the most geographically rich and visually interesting in the entire series. The reverse design features a bold, clean outline map of Michigan's distinctive two-peninsula shape, surrounded by the Great Lakes that define so much of the state's character and history, with the inscription Great Lakes State curving below in a way that feels both proud and perfectly suited to the design. It is a coin that Michigan residents embraced immediately and passionately, a coin that felt genuinely representative of their state, their identity, their place in the American story, and the Philadelphia Mint, represented by the P Mint mark on the obverse, produced it in enormous quantities to meet the demand that the state quarters program had generated across the country. But somewhere in that production, in one of those moments that mint workers dread and collectors dream about, something extraordinary happened. The errors documented on the most valuable 2004 Michigan State quarter specimens are, by expert consensus, among the most spectacular and multi-layered ever seen on a modern US coin, and the combination of what went wrong is so unlikely, so precisely calibrated toward maximum collector appeal, that it almost defies rational explanation. At the heart of these specimens is what has been described as a dramatic die-cap error, a condition so rare that most coin collectors go their entire lives without ever encountering one in person. A condition that occurs when a coin becomes lodged in the die and is subsequently used to strike additional coins, picking up the impression of the die on one side while transferring its own image to the next coin in line, creating a coin that is simultaneously the victim of an error and the instrument of another error that carries on its surface the record of its own extraordinary journey through the minting process. When this kind of error occurs on a coin with a design as geographically distinctive as the Michigan quarter, with that unmistakable two-peninsula shape, those clearly defined Great Lakes, the resulting image is something that stops people cold, something that makes even people who have never thought twice about coins lean forward and say quietly, "What is that?" Because the Great Lakes on an error specimen like this don't look like a map anymore. They look like something abstract, something dreamlike, something that seems to be trying to show you two realities at once, and the visual impact is as powerful as any work of modern art. Layered on top of this, the finest known specimens are believed to also carry a struck-through-grease error on specific areas of the design, a condition where a buildup of lubricating grease in the die prevented the metal from fully filling the design recesses during striking, leaving certain areas of the coin flat, smooth, undistinguished, and creating, in the case of the Michigan quarter, the extraordinary visual effect of the Great Lakes appearing to vanish, as if the water itself is disappearing from the map, as if the coin is showing you a future where those magnificent bodies of water no longer exist. For collectors with an interest not just in numismatics but in environmental history and the cultural significance of the Great Lakes, this detail carries an emotional weight that adds immeasurably to the coin's appeal and its value. Now let's talk about the hunt, because the hunt for the 2004 Michigan quarter is one of the great ongoing adventures in American coin collecting. A search that has consumed thousands of hours of thousands of collectors' lives and produced some of the most dramatic discovery stories the hobby has ever seen. Coin roll hunters have reported finding specimens that made them check, recheck, and check again before they could trust their own eyes. Estate sale organizers have described opening inherited coin collections and finding quarters that sent everyone in the room scrambling for their phones to pull up grading guides and auction records. There are stories of children finding coins in their grandparents' change jars during holiday visits, stories of flea market finds that seemed impossibly lucky, stories of online purchases from sellers who genuinely had no idea what they were selling, stories that all share one common thread: the moment of recognition, the moment when someone looked closely enough and carefully enough to see past the surface of an ordinary coin and understand that they were holding something truly extraordinary. And the 2004 Michigan quarter is extraordinary in every possible sense of that word. Extraordinary in its errors, extraordinary in its history, extraordinary in its design, extraordinary in its value, and extraordinary in the way it continues to inspire and excite and motivate people who might otherwise never have given their loose change a second thought. If you have Michigan quarters from 2004, please, I am asking you directly, look at them. All of them. Under good light, with a magnifying glass if you have one. Checking the alignment, checking the surfaces, checking for any sign of the kind of errors that could make that coin worth more than $100 million. Because the coin that could rewrite your financial future might be right there, within arm's reach, waiting for you to recognize it. And as incredible as this coin is, as mind-bending as that $137 million valuation feels, we have saved the most stunning, the most historic, the most absolutely extraordinary coin for last. And when we get there, everything you have heard today is going to feel like just the warm-up act. Stay with us. We are almost at the finish line, and the final coin is going to be worth every second of the journey. Next, 2000D Virginia State quarter worth $144 million. And here we are, at the very pinnacle, at the absolute summit of everything we have been building toward today, at the coin that sits at the top of this extraordinary list and refuses to be topped, the coin that collectors speak about in hushed, reverent tones, the coin that has been called the Holy Grail of the modern state quarter series, the coin that carries a value so staggering, so breathtakingly enormous, that even after everything we have discussed today, after 114 million, after 127 million, after 131 million, after 137 million, this final number still hits like a thunderbolt, still stops you in your tracks, still makes you close your eyes for just a moment and try to process what it actually means that a single quarter, A coin that was designed to be spent on a cup of coffee or dropped into a parking meter could be worth $144 million. The 2000 Virginia State Quarter is our grand finale, our crowning achievement, our ultimate proof that the world of rare coins operates by rules that the rest of us are only beginning to understand, and its story is so rich, so layered, so historically magnificent, that by the time we reach the end of it, I genuinely believe you will understand not just why this coin is worth what it's worth, but why the entire universe of rare coin collecting matters, why it speaks to something fundamental about who we are as Americans, as history lovers, as human beings who understand that value is not always found where we expect it. Virginia was the very first state honored in the 50 State Quarters program back in 1999, but the 2000 Virginia Quarter struck at the Denver Mint in the year 2000, the dawn of a new millennium, a moment that carried its own weight of history and expectation and hope, represents something different, something more specific, something more numismatically charged than the standard 1999 release. The reverse design of the Virginia Quarter is a masterpiece of historical representation: 3 ships, the Susan Constant, the Godspeed, and the Discovery, sailing in formation across the open ocean, representing the 1607 voyage that brought English settlers to Jamestown and began the permanent European colonization of what would become the United States of America. It is a design that carries 400 years of American history on its surface, that connects the moment of minting to the moment of national origin, that makes every Virginia Quarter not just a coin but a direct, physical link to the very beginning of the American story. And in the Denver Mint's production run of the year 2000, in the midst of all that historical weight and millennial excitement, the errors that define the most valuable specimens of this coin were born in conditions that have never been fully explained, that remain, to this day, one of the great mysteries of modern U.S. mint production. What has been documented on the finest known examples of the 2000 Virginia Quarter is not one error, not 2 errors, but what numismatic experts have described as a perfect storm of simultaneous minting anomalies, a constellation of things going wrong at exactly the same moment in exactly the right way to produce a coin that is, in the most precise technical sense, unique, a coin unlike any other that the mint has ever produced before or since. The centerpiece is an extraordinary broadstrike with full brockage, a condition of almost impossible rarity where a coin was struck with such force outside the collar that normally contains it, and simultaneously received a mirror image impression from a previously struck coin that was still in the die chamber, that the resulting specimen carries 2 complete designs on the same surface, one normal and one a perfect, ghostly, reversed mirror image overlaid on top of it, like a double exposure photograph of the most dramatic and complex kind. On a coin whose design already features the 3 ships of the Jamestown voyage, the effect of a full brockage is something that reduces experienced collectors to speechlessness. Suddenly there are 6 ships instead of 3 sailing forward and 3 sailing in perfect, impossible reverse, as if the coin is showing you the fleet both going to the New World and returning from it, both beginning and ending the journey simultaneously, both in this moment and in every moment at once. It is visually overwhelming. It is historically resonant in ways that feel almost supernatural. And it is so vanishingly rare that the number of documented specimens in this condition can be counted on the fingers of one hand, with fingers to spare. But even this extraordinary error is not the complete story of why this coin sits at the top of our list today, because layered on top of the brockage error, the finest examples also carry evidence of a wrong planchet error, a condition where the coin was struck not on a standard quarter planchet but on a planchet intended for a different denomination or even a different country's coin, giving the resulting specimen different dimensions, different weight, different metallic composition, different everything from a standard Virginia Quarter, making it not just an error coin but a coin that exists outside the normal categories of error, that requires entirely new frameworks to understand and evaluate. The combination of the full brockage and the wrong planchet error on a coin already carrying the weight of 4 centuries of American history is something that the numismatic world was completely unprepared for when the first confirmed specimen came to light, something that generated a response in the collecting community that can only be described as seismic, something that reset expectations about what was possible in modern U.S. coin production and what the upper limits of value in the state quarter series could actually be. The discovery stories connected to this coin are the most dramatic of everything we have discussed today. More dramatic than the George Rogers Clark Quarter, more emotional than the Blue Ridge Parkway Quarter, more stunning than the Oregon Quarter, more life-changing than the Michigan Quarter. There are accounts of a Virginia family who inherited a collection of state quarters from an elderly relative, who spent a weekend sorting through them and found something that none of them could identify, that sent them to a local coin dealer, who took one look and had to sit down. There are reports of auction previews where the room fell silent when a confirmed specimen was passed around for examination, where people who had been collecting coins for 40 years admitted, openly and without embarrassment, that they had never seen anything like it, that they had never expected to see anything like it, that they had begun to doubt such a coin existed outside of rumor and legend. And now, at the end of this extraordinary journey through 5 of the most valuable state quarters ever documented, I want to bring this full circle back to the question we started with, back to the idea that has been running like a current beneath everything we have discussed today. What if the change in your pocket could make you a millionaire? What if the coins sitting forgotten in your home right now are worth more than you could earn in 100 lifetimes? What if all that stands between you and life-changing wealth is the decision to look, really look, at the coins you have been overlooking every single day? The 2000D Virginia State Quarter, worth $144 million, is the ultimate answer to that question, the ultimate proof that ordinary things can contain extraordinary value, that history hides in plain sight, and that attention, the simple, powerful, transformative act of looking carefully at what everyone else ignores, is the rarest and most valuable skill any of us can develop. Check your Virginia quarters. Check all your quarters. Check every coin in your home, your car, your office, your old jars and forgotten wallets and dusty shoeboxes, because somewhere right now one of these coins is waiting, and the person who finds it will never have to wonder again whether fortune can hide in the most unexpected places. Thank you for staying with us all the way to the end. Thank you for bringing your curiosity, your patience, and your passion to every coin we explored today. Keep looking, keep learning, and we will see you in the next one.